and actually he has won the last edition of ReaktorX with Nebula project. So, Paweł, come on.
All right.
Your turn.
Thank you.
Wow, Marshall amplifier, how fitting. I love this. I love this already. All right, so the title of my talk today will be riding the Nebula Network with the ReaktorX accelerator. So basically the guys that organized this event here. And this is in the rocket. It's me and Justyna, yeah. Well, I'll talk about the experience with ReaktorX. And so the first thing is you might be asking yourself, if you didn't see any of my previous pitches, is what is Nebula Network? Well, anybody here heard of cloud computing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, one person. That's good. Cloud computing is when you use somebody else's computer, basically, and usually that somebody else's computer is Google's computer or Facebook's computer, and that's cloud computing. And when it's just anybody else's computing, it's something bigger, and it's a nebula. So clouds are basically objects in the sky, and we wanted to go bigger. So a cosmic cloud is usually a nebula, so we thought sky is not the limit, and so other built clouds, we built a nebula. All right, so Nebula is basically a decentralized peer-to-peer platform where anybody can connect their computer to provide its unused resources. So it's something like Uber for computers. And of course, resources are provided redundantly, securely, and all the stuff that people like. But it's more than just a cloud, which is our tagline, I think, now. Well, for providing those resources, you get money. And how do you get the money? You get them in the form of a cryptocurrency. That cryptocurrency basically props up the nebula with real value, and thus we get a cryptocurrency with intrinsic value. So that's the main idea. Build a decentralized cloud, so to speak, a nebula, and create a cryptocurrency. And of course, to make it all work, we made some complicated algorithms, but we hope the front end will be simple. Justyna's making sure of that. And well, that's Nebula. So let's come back to ReaktorX. They have a pretty cool mission, and their mission statement is to convert successful professionals into successful founders. Well, that's when the mission succeeds. When the mission fails, of course, you get successful professional turned into broke founders. But we hope to fulfill the mission statement. And one more reason why actually we are called Nebula. I always wanted to use those beautiful space pictures in the presentation, and I just found out how to make it work so it's somewhat readable. So yeah, that's the true reason why it's Nebula Network. All right, so the mission statement was professionals. So we're professionals. No, like seriously, we're we use Macs, so we're professionals. But seriously, we have a pretty cool team. I'm developing software for over 15 years. I developed the Opera browser. Anybody like that browser still? You're breaking my heart. It's losing, since I left, they're losing users by the minute. So sad. Anyway, I've been from software engineer to software architect on various projects. So was Michał. Justyna also led cool teams at cool companies, and so we sort of fulfilled that, that first part of the mission statement, where we were quite successful professionals. Well, if something goes right, and in Poland especially, if something goes wrong, no, the other way around. If something goes wrong, and even if something goes right, you need to look onto who's to blame. So why are we here? And we thought, well, without the eradication of communism in Poland, we wouldn't have capitalism, we wouldn't have startups, we wouldn't have everything. So something it's this guy's fault. Some other people think it's those guys. Some people think, you know, all the money that comes in and allows the startup ecosystem to blossom is due to European Union. So some people think Mr. K is involved, but really it's those guys. And there's really somebody with the K surname responsible, and that's Agata Wiśniewska. Totally her fault, actually. I wasn't sure whether to join, and we spoke on Facebook because I really liked her art business, and I was like, should we join, and do you recommend it? And then she's like, send me your pitch or something, and I sent her what we had, and the next day we had a call with Boris and Diana, and yeah, and they made us join. So, but basically, this is the girl that brought us in, and thanks. I know what you're thinking. It's like this little but I know she regrets it already. Every time we almost didn't meet the deadline, and Reaktor people wondered whether we would show up, but we did. We always came through, I believe. So. What are the aspects? So, I'm getting this cool reverb. Whoa, yeah, awesome. Thanks for the Marshall experience. Hello. All right, so the basic things you'll do when you join ReaktorX, the acceleration program, is learning, laughing, a lot of stress. Like laughing, like I remember dollar presentation. Talk about cracking jokes, yeah. All right, there's stress involved. You know, you will be pitching and practicing pitching, and I've seen grown men just freeze up on stage, so it's definitely stressful as well. And there's networking. And that's basically it. So yeah, and you'll interact with those guys again. So like in any fair, you know, review. We should see what went right, what went wrong. Of course, we'll start with the bad. So what did not work? Finding co-founders didn't work for us. So basic advice, if you're looking for co-founders, probably any acceleration program is not the best place. Of course, it can happen sometimes, but you know, finding co-founders is like marriage. And basically, you never know when things go wrong, and what's the divorce gonna cost you. So ReaktorX is not really for, you know, finding dates, although it might work as well, but not really. So finding co-founders, if that's your only objective, don't join. What worked and didn't work at the same time. So learning. The learning part is great. You'll get a comprehensive set of quick courses, but if you're a successful professional, it's very difficult to teach you something in a short amount of time, especially when you're there with people with different backgrounds. So the experience is more for, you know, you'll have, if you haven't done a startup before, you'll have little holes in your knowledge probably, and the experience is good for filling those, you know, little missing pieces. However, what is great is meeting those people with different backgrounds, and you can learn a lot. Learning is in a way deferred. It's what comes next that's important, and the real learning process. So what worked? Networking worked. So if you run a business, you need money, and the number of investors we talked to grew about 30 times since we finished ReaktorX before we joined. And now it's 30 times more, about 30 times more. Sorry? The starting number was 2. So, yeah. So it grew a lot. So it's now over 60 people we talk to. investors we talked to that came directly from ReaktorX are probably around 20%. So every fifth investor we talked to we got connected to them directly from some ReaktorX event or from those guys or from a one-time mentor. But that's not all, because that's every fifth investor. But then if investors like you, they bring other people. So basically investors that were brought in, basically not people that always invested or will invest probably, but people we talk to actively now. Over half of them came from extended ReaktorX network. So for example, one investor we got from ReaktorX, then introduced us to some other people who also want to invest and talk to us. So it's really a lot. So thanks, guys. So on average, an investor brought in more than one other investor. So you know, it really helps to make a good impression on investors. They will, if they like you, they will bring more business, so to speak. But that's not all. Investors is not all. We got a lot of mentors. And coming back to learning, it's very hard to learn in the short amount of time. So don't expect you'll learn everything during the events, but you'll meet people which will teach you later. So in a delayed way, you'll learn a lot. And then there's PR. A lot of outlets wrote about us, especially after we won the demo night, the audience award. Business Insider wrote about us. It K Media, thanks Ahmed, I see him sitting there, so thanks. A lot of good press, that always helps. But the best thing, when we were starting, nobody really, took us seriously, and Reaktor basically proposed they take a payment of 2K and get 2% of the company. So basically we got a valuation of minus 100,000, and it might have been fair, not, I don't know. But now, since we're a crypto company, we mostly give people tokens, so they don't get equity. So now we have investors committed for about 100K at 0% of the equity. So it's easy to calculate that we're valued at infinity.
So what is token?
A token is basically if you consider cryptocurrency is made of coins, one coin is a token. It's a synonym of a coin, a unit of the currency you're producing. Right, so from minus 100K to plus infinity, and switching from PLN to dollars, that's awesome, right? So that's probably the best thing. And there's something else. Due to the time constraints, I had to quit my regular job. Actually, I had a regular job and some side gigs, and I did this, and it wasn't sustainable. So I quit, and now I'm full-time Nebula. So my situation looks sort of like that now. Yeah, you can recognize me, right? That's the same laptop we showed earlier. Right. It is crazy, but you'll need to do it if you're serious about doing a challenging business. And we have a huge project. Yeah, our project, we also made Agile dead in a way, because everybody here required us to show us a plan. So finally we have a plan, and we even have some achievements along the way, which are marked, like with little trophies. Ah, this doesn't work. The lasers don't work. Okay, but I got a Marshall. Still good. Still an epic win. So we have a plan, and Reaktor will force you to not only fill in the gaps in your knowledge, but to fill in the gaps in your in what you do and how you present things. So that's a lot of added value. So basically what I'm saying is thank you guys, and it was a blast. We shown the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. I hope you don't mind. So thank you. I'm Paweł again from Nebula Network. You can contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Paweł. Actually, we didn't know what he's gonna say, so it was a bit risky on our part, but thank you anyways. And okay, so now you have questions to Paweł. So.
Right. Hi.
Yeah. Two questions. One is like, how are you going to encourage the owners of PCs to share their computing power with you? The second
Paying
one
them.
is do you know any data about the average number of investors that you need to pitch to before you secure an investment?
Yeah, so people told us that if you want to land, it's to land 2 investors, you need to pitch to about 60. So that's the
Reactor, right?
sorry.
That's the number you secured during your stay in Reactor.
Secured is a loaded word, but yeah, that's about the number we're talking to. So yeah, so we should close a few. Actually, yeah. Actually, some investors came forward even before we were ready to get the money. So it's going pretty well.
The first question about encouraging people to actually use your platform to become your product.
Of course, but the platform's not ready yet, so we're concentrating more on getting the funding right now than on convincing people to use a product that is not ready. But of course, that's the plan to have people use it. Yes. No. Just kidding. Go ahead.
No, please, take the mic.
Questions actually, because I'd like to know if it's a global idea just to use someone's computer to take advantage of the processor which someone else has.
Yes.
Do you focus on a branch which you can use? Did you do that?
On a branch.
On a branch, I mean 3D graphics or I don't know.
No, we're building a universal platform, but the early use cases we suppose are good for computation are protein folding, 3D rendering. We also think about training machine learning models, deep learning. But deep learning is complicated because it doesn't parallelize that well. So it's difficult to make it scale. It's not gonna go faster if you throw twice as fast if you throw twice as many computers on it. And of course, storage is a very good thing too.
Well, the idea is great for example, for render farms,
Yes.
which use a lot of
Absolutely.
processors work. And I think that it could be used for 3D renderings as well, for example, for Autodesk or 3ds Max and so on.
Yes, Blender,
Could be
3ds Max, Maya. Absolutely, you're right. It's rendering parallelizes very well. You can render almost each pixel individually. You can render frames from different scenes or even from one scene individually. So basically rendering parallelizes perfectly. So yeah, rendering is good. The only problem with rendering is some scenes require a lot of data. So you need to send the data to the computers that are helping. So that's one of the bottlenecks with rendering. But otherwise rendering is great as an application.
About using devices. How about using this processing power to mine cryptocurrencies?
Well, mining is a wasteful process in a way, and of course you could, but in the end we hope we call this resourcing. So doing useful work should be more valuable than doing work that is not really useful, that is only, used as a proof that you're not conducting a civil attack, basically. So we think proof of work did a great, it's a cool idea in a way, but it got out of hand and it's very wasteful now, very unecological. Bitcoin mining uses more energy now than whole Iceland combined, or Hong Kong. More energy than the whole country of Iceland. Iceland uses less power than the Bitcoin network. So, we think about global warming and all those things. It's a shame, really.
Are there any competitors?
Yes, of course there are competitors. Although there are people who, basically competitors are in a few categories. So some people try to build a distributed cloud. But what those competitors usually don't do is have an emission mechanism that is based on the supply of resources. So basically, if you want to have a stable currency, you should map the supply of the resources to the supply of the money, or to the creation of the money. All right. So our competitors don't do that, and we think it's crucial. There are those who try to make a stable cryptocurrency by actually backing it with resources such as gold, but then they have a valid emission mechanism. That is, every time they emit a token, they add some gold to their safe. But that is centralized in a way because all the gold is kept in their safe. So that nullifies the distributed characteristic of a cryptocurrency. Then there's, of course, traditional clouds, which are not decentralized at all. They're controlled by someone. They work well, of course, but centralization has a lot of problems in itself. So I think we're the first and only comprehensive solution right now. So there's nobody like us, really. Yes.
My question was a bit similar because I was thinking about other blockchain projects like Golem in terms of
Golem's awesome. We like that.
yeah in data, but also Filecoin or storage or some other projects more like
Yeah,
cloud.
so Golem, for example, just to make a point again, Golem emitted just 1 billion tokens, and the amount of tokens of Golem tokens is now fixed. It's not changing whether more computers connect to the network or not. So we think that's one of the things that differentiates us from Golem and makes us.
That's what I see. What is interesting about this project. I'm not sure if it is good or bad at this point, but it's definitely interesting. It's something new. Your token emission model is it's something fresh. So are there other things that make a better solution perhaps than Golem or Filecoin or storage or some other projects?
Yes, there are actually a lot of things. So, but we would have to split it case by case basis, right? So, Golem is so we share the goal of building a computational cloud with Golem. So, in a way, I think we're the only two projects in the world that try to do that right now. What we don't share with them is the belief that it's the best way to do it is to live on the Ethereum blockchain. We'll see how Ethereum develops, whether they're successful in making their blockchain scalable. There are good chances of that, but the progress is slow so far. So, when CryptoKitties went live, the whole network was brought to its knees.
Maybe cross-chain solutions are the future.
Maybe. So we think innovation in the base technology is important. Again, because they live on the Ethereum blockchain, they didn't come up with a new emission mechanism in a way, right? Because in Ethereum, the emission mechanism is fixed. It's copied from Bitcoin, which is basically a constant curve in time, which is in its time it was great innovation, but now, in a way, it's like driving blindfolded. You know, it's like the Fed would not look at the economy and just set interest rates, just blindly.
Well, I think I don't want to start a new complicated topic, but more things could be achieved even on Ethereum blockchain. For example, by locking some of the tokens in different pools and releasing them from the pools depending on the conditions. So it can be done, but
yeah, there are solutions, of course, that could be made within that ecosystem. But it's at a certain point you have to look if the technology you brought in to help yourself, if the base, the foundation you're building on, is actually slowing you down or accelerating you,
it's
right?
scaling.
If it wasn't designed for what you're building, right? The platform you're building on, maybe you should start something fresh. And we think there's a lot of innovation in the basic blockchain technology that Ethereum is too big already to incorporate in a fast way. So that's why we're not building on Ethereum.
Do I get it right that you're planning to offer end users a way to earn money or tokens or something in exchange for their computation power? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Don't you find it a potential risk that most of the end user computers become mobile right now, and the fact that they're running on batteries at least some of the time may prevent the users from being eager to give you the computation power at the cost of being less mobile, for example?
Yes, that's a valid issue, of course. It is a problem, but that's where we're not advertising that we're going to provide clients for mobile phones, for example. That wouldn't be that good. That's what our fictionless competitors, the Pied Piper guys, do, and it's not a good idea. But there's still a lot of gaming PCs. There are a lot of game consoles that are powerful, and they stay at home, and they're connected to the grid power. They don't run on batteries. Yes, it sort of diminishes our market size. That's true, but there's still a lot of computers that just sit there idly, and a lot of people even keep their laptops at home and can leave them on. All right.